They glanced at the little box in my hands and laughed, certain it held nothing of value. But when I slid the envelope across the table, their smiles faded into silence. Have you ever had someone dismiss your gesture, only to realize later it carried more weight than they imagined? Share it in the comments. I'd love to know. Now let's get straight into the story. Birthdays had never been about extravagance in my house. When the kids were little, we celebrated with homemade cakes, paper hats, and laughter echoing through the walls. The gifts were often simple: hand-drawn cards, a knitted scarf, maybe a toy bought with allowance money. And you know what? Those birthdays were my favorite. But as the years went on, things changed. My children grew up, built their careers, started families of their own. Life became faster, louder, more expensive. Celebrations shifted from living room tables to restaurants, from simple joys to polished appearances. So when my birthday rolled around this year, I wanted to bring back that feeling of simplicity. I didn't need anything grand, just something from the heart. That's why I walked in carrying a small gift, a plain, square box wrapped in modest paper. To me, it held more meaning than any large package could. But the moment my children saw it, I felt the air shift. Their eyes flickered toward one another, lips curling into smirks. My eldest chuckled under his breath. "Mom still wraps presents like it's 1980, he whispered. Another leaned over and said, "That can't be much. Maybe socks." They didn't mean to be cruel, I'm sure. But laughter, even gentle, has a way of cutting deep when it comes from your own children. I smiled anyway, though inside I felt a pinch of sadness. They didn't understand. To them, a small box was just small. The dinner carried on, filled with chatter and clinking glasses. I kept my gift on my lap, waiting. There was another part of it, an envelope tucked beneath the ribbon. The envelope held the real surprise. You see, months before, I had been quietly planning something I hadn't told anyone. Every morning, I'd set aside a little, trimming corners where I could. No one noticed when I skipped dessert at restaurants or when I reused old clothes a season longer. But each choice built towards something larger. The envelope was proof of that. And as the laughter around me grew, I felt my heart beat a little faster. They thought the gift was small, but they hadn't seen what was inside. That night, I decided it was time to show them. The restaurant was lively that evening. Waiters wove between tables, plates clattered, glasses sparkled under the lights. But at our table, all I could hear was the low hum of my children's laughter, directed in part at me. "Come on, Mom," my youngest said, nudging the box with her fork. "You can't keep us in suspense." "What's in there?" "Something tiny and mysterious." Her brother chimed in. "Maybe it's coupons for hugs or socks." "Definitely socks." The table erupted again. I forced a smile, pretending their teasing rolled right off me, but inside I felt something twist. Parents spend their lives lifting their children, cheering them on, clapping at every small victory. Yet in that moment, I was the one sitting quietly, the butt of the joke. I glanced at the box, its paper a little wrinkled from my clumsy wrapping. Yes, it looked unimpressive, ordinary, forgettable. I could almost see how they formed their assumption. But what hurt wasn't the size of the gift. It was how quickly they dismissed me. How easily they forgot that a mother's hands, even when holding something small, can carry weight they can't yet see. I folded my napkin slowly, breathing through the sting, and reminded myself of the envelope waiting beneath the ribbon. For months I had kept my secret carefully tucked away. I hadn't told them about the evenings I stayed home instead of going out, the mornings I clipped coupons, or the weekends I quietly sold old belongings online. They didn't know that every sacrifice had been intentional, part of a plan. Because the truth was, this gift wasn't about me at all. It was about them. The waiter arrived with our meals, distracting everyone. The chatter shifted toward work updates, vacation plans, and funny stories about the grandchildren. I listened quietly, nodding, laughing when appropriate, but my mind was elsewhere. The envelope. It rested against my fingers, tucked securely under the box, waiting for its moment. I imagined the look on their faces when they realized what it held. The thought both calmed me and made my heart race faster. After dessert arrived, a cake I hadn't asked for but appreciated, my eldest finally pushed his plate aside. "All right, Mom," he said. "You've kept us waiting long enough. Let's see what's in the mystery box." All eyes turned to me. I smiled, this time not forced but steady, and slid the box onto the table. My hands trembled slightly as I untied the ribbon, the envelope still tucked beneath. Inside the box was something simple, an old locket I had polished until it gleamed. It had been my mother's, passed down quietly through the years. My daughter squinted at it, tilting her head. "It's pretty," she said carefully, though her tone held confusion. Her brother leaned closer, eyebrows raised, as if waiting for the real gift to appear. And then I lifted the envelope. "This," I said softly, "is the part you don't see." I slid my finger under the flap and opened it, revealing the stack of papers neatly folded inside. For a moment, the restaurant noise faded, as if the entire world was holding its breath with me. Because what was written in those papers wasn't small at all. It was something that would reshape how my children saw me, and perhaps how they saw themselves. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. My fingers trembled as I held it up, my children watching with mild curiosity, still expecting something trivial. I took a slow breath and unfolded the first page. Their laughter faded as they leaned in. It wasn't a receipt. It wasn't a coupon. It was a letter, typed carefully but signed in my own hand. "Dear children," I began, my voice wavering. "For years you've told me not to worry about myself, to let you handle things. But a parent never stops caring, never stops planning." Their eyes fixed on the paper as I continued. "I know life isn't easy. I know bills pile up, dreams get delayed, and sometimes you feel like you're on your own. So I've been saving, quietly, little by little. And now, it's time." I laid the letter flat on the table and pulled out the documents behind it. Bank statements, confirmation slips. My eldest's eyes widened. "Mom, is this—" "Yes," I said softly. "It's money. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough for each of you to feel a little lighter, to chase something you've been putting off, to remind you that no matter how grown you are, I'll always try to give what I can." For a moment, the table was silent. The same children who had laughed at my small gift now sat frozen, their mouths slightly open. I reached into the envelope again and pulled out 3 checks, one for each of them. The room seemed to shrink as I slid them across the table. My daughter covered her mouth, tears springing to her eyes. My youngest son whispered, "But how?" I smiled, though my own eyes burned. "By living simply, by giving up little luxuries, by remembering that love doesn't retire when children grow up. I wanted you to know that even the smallest box can hold something bigger than you imagine." They stared at the checks, the weight of my words sinking in. The teasing was gone, replaced by a quiet reverence I hadn't felt from them in years. Finally, my eldest spoke, his voice breaking. "We laughed at you, Mom. We thought—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "We thought it was nothing." I reached across the table, laying my hand over his. "You thought wrong, and that's all right. Sometimes the most important things don't look important until you open them." Tears welled in my daughter's eyes as she whispered, "We should have known better. We should have trusted." Her words broke, but her hand squeezed mine. And just like that, the room shifted. The laughter that had once cut deep was replaced by silence. Not the cold kind, but the heavy kind, thick with realization and love. For the first time in years, My children weren't just looking at me as their aging mother. They were seeing me as a woman, capable, thoughtful, quietly strong. And in that moment, I knew the small box had done its job. Because sometimes you don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to open the right envelope. The silence lingered, heavy and raw. For once, my children, so quick to speak, to laugh, to fill the room with noise, sat wordless. Their eyes darted between the checks, the letter, and me. Finally, my youngest son broke the stillness. His voice, usually sharp with jokes, was small. "Mom, I didn't mean to laugh. Just thought it was silly. We didn't know." I reached across the table, brushing my fingers against his hand. "I know you didn't, but laughter has weight, you know, and sometimes it presses on the heart more than you realize." His face flushed with shame. My daughter wiped her tears with her napkin. "We thought we were grown. We thought we didn't need you to give like this anymore." I smiled gently. Children never outgrow love, and love doesn't shrink just because the years pass. Her hand found mine, squeezing tight. My eldest, usually the stoic one, stared at his check for a long moment before speaking. "You sacrificed for this, didn't you? I see it now. The way you never bought new coats, the way you skipped things you deserved, and we teased you." I let out a soft laugh, not bitter, but warm. "Yes, I sacrificed. But that's what parents do. Don't feel guilty for it. Just understand that every small choice added up to this moment." They exchanged glances, and something shifted among them. The teasing was gone. In its place was something I hadn't seen in a while: respect. The waiter came by to clear the plates, and I caught a glimpse of us reflected in the restaurant's window, my children leaning toward me, their eyes soft, their hands resting near mine. It was a picture I wanted to freeze forever. My daughter whispered, "We were so blind. We measure things in size, in cost, in how they look on the outside. But you showed us that meaning doesn't live in the wrapping. It lives in the heart." I blinked back tears. "That's all I ever wanted you to see." One by one, they folded their checks back into the envelope, not rejecting them, but holding them with reverence, as if the paper itself carried more than money. It carried memory, sacrifice, love woven into numbers. For the first time in years, I felt the balance between us shift. No longer was I just the background figure, the aging parent to be looked after out of duty. I was seen, heard, valued, and in that recognition, the sting of their earlier laughter faded. What remained was a deeper connection, one born not from gifts, but from the unveiling of truth. As we left the restaurant, my daughter looped her arm through mine. My son held the door. My youngest lingered close, quieter than usual. "Mom," he said softly, "next year, no gifts, just dinner and your stories. That's all we really want." I smiled, my heart lighter than it had been in years. "Maybe, but don't underestimate me. I might still surprise you." They laughed, not mockingly this time, but warmly, with a tenderness that wrapped around me like a blanket. And for the first time in a long time, I knew their laughter didn't sting. It healed. That night, after the restaurant had emptied and my children had gone home, I sat alone with the now empty envelope resting in my lap. The laughter, the tears, the looks on their faces, they all replayed in my mind like a film I wanted to watch again and again. For years, I had worried that my role in their lives was shrinking, that as they grew older, as they built their own families, I was becoming more of a shadow than a center. They brought me along to holidays, birthdays, gatherings, yes, but sometimes I felt more like a guest than a mother. And when they laughed at my small gift earlier that evening, that fear nearly felt confirmed. For a moment, I thought maybe I really had become invisible. Maybe all they saw was someone with wrinkled hands and simple ways, unable to keep up with their pace of life. But the envelope reminded them who I truly was. Not just a mother, Not just a figure from their childhood, but a woman who still had power to give, to shape, to surprise. It wasn't about the money. Not really. Money comes and goes. What mattered was what it represented. Persistence, intention, love, carried quietly in everyday choices. I thought about the nights I'd turned off the lights a little earlier to save on the electric bill, the mornings I skipped a coffee shop visit, brewing my own instead, the clothes I patched rather than replaced. Each tiny decision had seemed insignificant at the time, but together they had built a gift that spoke louder than anything wrapped in gold paper. And in their eyes, wide, tearful, humbled, I saw recognition. I saw the truth land inside them, that love isn't measured by the size of the box, but by the depth of the sacrifice. I realized then that I didn't need them to see me as invincible. I didn't need to be the hero of every story. What I wanted, more than anything, was for them to understand that parents never stop giving, even when the world assumes we've already given all we can. That night, before I went to bed, my phone buzzed. A message from my eldest. "Mom, thank you, not for the money, for showing us what love looks like. I'll never forget tonight." Another message followed from my daughter. "I'm sorry for laughing. You taught me a lesson I needed to learn. I love you." And then my youngest. "You're still full of surprises. Next year, dinner's on me." I held the phone close, tears sliding down my cheeks. They had finally seen me, not as a relic of their past, but as someone who still mattered deeply in their present. That was the real gift. And as I turned off the lamp, I whispered to myself, small boxes can hold the biggest truths. So here's what I learned that night. Never underestimate the power of something small. My children thought my gift was nothing, but inside that little box and envelope was a reminder that love doesn't shrink with age. It grows, it deepens, it sacrifices quietly until the right moment to be seen. If you've ever felt overlooked or laughed at because what you brought seemed too little, remember this: the meaning behind your gift can echo louder than its size. That evening, my children didn't just walk away with checks. They walked away with a lesson that even the smallest packages can carry a parent's greatest love. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, stay with us. We have many more tales that will remind you of the quiet power we carry, even when others doubt it.